Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi, my name is Maisarah Akmal BINTI with student ID 2020476768, and my supervisor is Dr. NURUN NADHIRAH BINTI. Welcome to my video presentation to all. Today I'm going to present about comparison of selected soil physico-chemical properties and heavy metals between two different paddy plantations. As you can see, this is the outline that I'll present after this. So let's start with chapter 1 first, which is introduction about this study. One of the most valuable natural resources is soil. All life is dependent on plants which grow in the soil to meet daily needs. Crops are grown on the soil to produce food and textiles. Malaysian soils can be divided into three primary categories, which are coastal alluvial soils, residual soils of sedimentary rock, and residual soils of granite. It also has been supported with two supporting studies. First, the soil also a vital element in farming. Therefore, the study of territory's physico-chemical composition is essential since both its physical and chemical characteristics affect the fertility of the soil. Second, the physico-chemical characteristics of the soil affect both the production of food and the quality of the environment. So, it is necessary to have a fundamental understanding of these physico-chemical characteristics. So, there are two problem statements that inspired me to make research about this study. The first of the problem statement is the impact of soil quality for paddy crops. Physico-chemical is one of the important things of soil to know whether the soil is in good quality or suitable or not for paddy crops. This is because it produces a high quality of paddy. To fulfill the needs of the population on a basic level and to protect the environment, industrialization and agricultural growth are required. Second is heavy metals pollution in agricultural soils has emerged as one of the major global problems, threatening both the sustainability of life and the food production. According to the reports, excessive use of agrochemicals, which is pesticide, insecticide, herbicide, and nematicides, or long-term farming practices can both pollute agricultural soils. Let's move on to the significance of this study. This study will be beneficial to the farmer to learn something new and enhance their skills. Other than that, it is also beneficial in the agricultural industry where they can apply this information for the paddy crops to produce high quality of the paddy, thus increasing their economy. This study also gives the exposure to the community to increase their information regarding the physico-chemical characteristics of soil and also discovering the benefits of its physico-chemical properties and heavy metals. As you can see, this is the objective for the study, which is to determine the physico-chemical properties of soil at two different plantations by using several methods, and the second one is to investigate heavy metals of soil at two different plantations. Next, we go to chapter 2, which is literature review for this study. In this part, there are 5 things that will be presented, which is introduction of physico-chemical characteristics of soil and 4 physico-chemical properties, which are soil pH, soil texture, organic matter, and also heavy metals. The soil productivity is influenced by the physical and chemical factors. The composition of the soil, which includes inorganic stuff, organic matter, soil organisms, moisture, solution, and air, makes it a complicated system. A modest amount of organic matter, 25 to 35% water, 50 to 25% air, and 50 to 60% mineral matter are all presented in soil. Soil pH is therefore referred to as the master soil variable, since it controls a plethora of soil biological, chemical, and physical qualities, as well as processes that affect plant development and biomass output. Knowing the pH of the soil allows the user to rapidly evaluate if the soil is suited for plant development and which nutrients will be the most limiting. Next, in terms of soil texture. Soil texture is considered an essential land environmental characteristic because it plays a major role in soil deterioration, water transport processes, also known as infiltration, and determining soil quality and production. Next, the findings in terms of organic matter. Soil also plays an important function in the breakdown and stability of organic matter. Soil organic matter is predominantly composed of complex organic compounds in various states of decomposition and is directly connected to soil quality. Lastly, for findings in terms of heavy metals. Heavy metals remain in soil, posing a major threat to ecosystems and posing health concerns to humans via bioaccumulation in plants and also animals or bioconcentration in the food chain. So let's move on to the next chapter, which is methodology. In this part, there are 4 methods that has been used to know more about the physical-chemical properties of the soil. At first, the soil sample has been collected at 2 different paddy groups. The first method is pH analysis, and we use pH meter. Each of the soil samples are weighed at the same weight and mixed with distilled water. After that, immerse the electrode of pH meter in the slurry solution to get the pH value. Second method is soil texture analysis by using sieve method. At first, the soil must grain to become small particles for size, and each soil samples also must weigh. In this method, we use 3 different sizes of screen to determine proportion 3 types of soil. After run the sieve shaker for 10 minutes, each layer will be weighed and the proportion of clay, silt and sand soil can be determined. Third method is loss of ignition method, and it is used to determine organic matter in the soil samples. First step is heating 2 crucibles and weigh that crucibles. After that, put the soil in the crucibles and weigh again, then heat it in the muffled furnace about 2 hours. Then after the crucibles already cool, weigh the crucible again. From that information, the percentage of organic matter can be calculated using formula. The last analysis is for heavy metals by using ICP-OES machine. Each soil samples were digested with nitric acid and hydrochloric acid with ratio 3:1. Each mixture was heated on hot plate, and after cooling down, the mixture was filtered with filtered paper and the ionized water was added until it reached 50 ml. Then each soil mixture and 3 standard solutions were poured into tube before running to ICP-OES. There are 8 heavy metals that were determined, which are chromium, copper, ferrum, potassium, manganese, sodium, nickel, and also zinc. Now let's move on to the chapter 4, which is result and discussion. From the table, it shows that the pH value for soil sample A is 4.10, while the pH value for soil sample B is 4.30. These 2 soil samples were acidic because it has lower pH. The pH value of 2 soil samples shows that it is not in range because both soil samples have more acidic pH, while the most suitable pH for paddy crops is 5.5 of pH value. Even though the result shows the pH value that is not suitable range, by using fertilizers that have little contents of toxic elements, it can improve the soil pH for suitability for planting the paddy. Next slide shows the result for soil texture analysis. From table 1, it shows the result of soil texture for soil sample A. The initial soil weight is different with the total soil after sieving. The soil weight are exceeded by 0.02. It is because due to error when using and reading the analytical balance. This problem can be overcome by reading the analytical balance when the balance that is confirmed already stabilizes. Other than that, this experiment can repeat again to get more accurate result. For table 2, as you all can see, it shows the result for soil sample B. The initial soil weight is 100 gram, while the total soil after sieving is 99.63 gram. It means that there are also some errors occur while carried out this experiment. Based on the relative overall percentage that have been calculated, the type of soil sample A and B are silt soil because the percentage of silt soil is the highest compared to sand soil and clay soil. The result in these ratios is not the same as the previous study. The previous study stated that the clay soil is more suitable and good for paddy crops. It is because clay soil has finer particles that may store more water and nutrients than silt soil, allowing it to retain more water and nutrients required for the water-loving rice plant. Aside from that, silt soil is known to contain significantly smaller particles than sandy soil, and it is composed of rock and other mineral particles that are smaller than sand but larger than clay. So it's a smooth and fin-grained soil that retains water better than sand. So the silt soil also good for paddy cultivation. Next, for organic matter analysis. The green table shows the result for soil sample A and B after running the experiment. From the information of the table, the percentage of organic matter for soil sample A and B can be determined. As you can see, the soil sample A has more organic matter rather than soil sample B. Indirectly, soil sample A is healthier than soil sample B in terms of chemical, biological, and also physical. Lastly, for heavy metal analysis, the table shows the value of 8 heavy metals that contain in each soil samples. We can see the differentiation of each element based on the graph. The highest content in both soil samples is ferrum, followed by potassium and sodium. Ferrum is good for soil agricultural, but it is highly toxic when in excess. From the information in this slide, it can conclude that the soil sample A is more toxic soil since it has many elements that have a high value among the 8 elements studied. Soil sample A can be used to plant paddy, but the owner must treat the soil to make sure the soil lasts toxic and the paddy can grow well. As a conclusion, in terms of pH, the two soil samples are acidic. When tested using a pH meter, they have a low pH level. For soil texture, the kind of soil for soil sample A and B is silt soil since the percentage of silt soil in the experiment was largest compared to sand and clay soil. The sieving method was used to determine the soil texture for each soil sample. Aside from that, the loss of elimination method was utilized for organic matter. According to the results of the laboratory experiment, soil sample A has a larger proportion of organic matter than soil sample B. Finally, wet digestion method was utilized to identify heavy metals in soil samples, followed by ICP-OES method. Based on the future research, the theories described in this study might provide the basis for subsequent research or be used to evaluate the validity of other relevant discoveries. Aside from that, this study can motivate and pique the interest of other future scholars in doing more research and testing on the physico-chemical properties and heavy metals of the soil. This is the list of reference that I've used during my research. So that's all from me and thank you for watching.